Home prices in Metro Vancouver are now down nearly 12% from their April 2022 peak. The composite benchmark sits at 1.1 million as of February 2026, and sales are almost 29% below the 10-year average. Active listings are 37% above that same average, and the question I get from almost every client right now, whether they are a seller trying to decide if they should list or a buyer trying to figure out how much lower things can go, is the same question. Where are prices heading next? Sellers want to know if they should list or hold out, and buyers are being rewarded for patience. While it is impossible to know exactly how much further prices will decrease, I'm going to walk you through 4 data sets that predict where prices could go and then show you the forces that could put a floor under this market. Some of these numbers are going to surprise you, and the first data set is the Toronto-Vancouver comparison. Historically, these two cities track each other very closely on price, going back 2 decades. Vancouver had a spike in 2016 from foreign capital, but by 2020, the two markets had realigned. Since 2023, they had diverged significantly. Toronto is down approximately 24% from its February 22 peak, and Vancouver is down roughly 12% from the April 2022 peak, and that is a 12 percentage point gap. If these two markets converge again, which they have done after every previous divergence, Vancouver would need to fall an additional 12%, and that would bring the benchmark down to approximately 968,000, essentially January 2021 pricing, completely erasing the pandemic era gains. Toronto's correction has been driven partly by condo oversupply that Vancouver does not have to the same degree. So the convergence may not be 1-to-1, but the historical correlation is strong enough that this scenario deserves consideration. The second data set takes a much longer view. During the early 1980s, Vancouver detached home prices peaked at approximately $180,000 and dropped to around $110,000, and that is a decline of roughly 39%. Condos dropped by approximately 31%, and that was driven by double-digit interest rates and a severe recession. The circumstances were different from today, but it demonstrates that Vancouver real estate is not immune to significant corrections. If we saw a 25 to 30% total peak to trough decline like the 1980s, that brings the benchmark to somewhere between $875,000 and $940,000. We are at 12% off the peak, so that implies another 13 to 18% of downside. It will require a severe recession, but this market has seen those kinds of declines before. The third data set is the price to income ratio, and I think this is the one that is the most instructive. The Demographia International Housing Affordability Report ranks Vancouver as the 4th least affordable major housing market in the world, behind only Hong Kong, Sydney, and San Jose. Vancouver's median multiple, the median home price divided by the median household income, sits at 11.8. To put that in context, in the 1980s, Vancouver's ratio was 4-to-1, by 1994, 8-to-1, and by 2005, 10-to-1. Today at 11.8, we are deep into what Demographia classifies as impossibly unaffordable. That 11.8 uses the median household income of approximately $82,000 from the most recent census data. And if the ratio were to revert back to 10-to-1, which is where we were in 2005, that implies a home price of roughly $820,000. If it fell to 8-to-1 like 1994, that is $656,000. A full reversion seems unlikely given structural constraints, but even a partial reversion from 11.8 to 10 implies another 15% downside from current levels. The fourth data set is employment, and this is the one I think people are underestimating right now. Historically, unemployment spikes have a direct and measurable impact on home pricing. During the 2008-2009 global financial crisis, Canada's unemployment rate jumped from approximately 6% to nearly 8.6%. And during that period, Vancouver home prices dropped from about $536,000 to $463,000, a decline of roughly 14%. And that was in a market with far better population growth and far more demand than what we have today. Now look at where we are right now. Canada lost 84,000 jobs in February 2026, and that is one of the worst monthly job losses outside of the pandemic in recent history. The unemployment rate has climbed to 6.7%, and full-time employment dropped by 108,000 positions in a single month. Private sector employment fell by 73,000, and that comes on top of a loss of 25,000 jobs in January. Economists were expecting a gain of 10,000 jobs, and they got a loss of 84,000. Youth unemployment is at a 35-year high, and this data was collected before the full impact of the trade war escalation and the tariff uncertainty had fully hit the labor market. Should unemployment continue to climb toward that 8 to 9% range we saw during the GFC, history suggests Vancouver home prices would face an additional 10 to 16% decline from current levels. That would put us somewhere in the $925,000 to $990,000 range on the composite benchmark. And the current market data reinforces this. The Greater Vancouver Realtors reported 1,648 sales in February, nearly 29% below the 10-year average. Active listings sit at 13,545, 37% above the 10-year average, and the sales to active ratio is 12.6%, right at the buyer's market threshold. Detached homes are at 9%, deep buyer's market conditions. Royal LePage is forecasting another 3.5% decline by Q4 2026, which I think is light, and this market is still correcting. So those are the 4 downside scenarios. A Toronto convergence implies a benchmark of roughly $968,000. A historical 1980s style correction could take us to $875,000 to $940,000. A price to income reversion to 10-to-1 implies $820,000, and a GFC level unemployment shock could bring us to the $925,000 to $990,000 range. Now, I'm not predicting any one of those specific outcomes, but the fact that the 3 of those 4 scenarios cluster in the $900,000 to $990,000 range tells you something about where the downside risk sits for this market currently. Now, I think it is equally important to look at what could prevent prices from falling to those levels. There are real economic forces that provide a floor to this market, and ignoring them would be just as irresponsible as ignoring the downside. The first is the intergenerational wealth transfer. CPA Canada estimates over $1 trillion is moving from baby boomers to younger generations between 2023 and 2026 alone. $4 trillion over the next 20 years. CIBC reported that 31% of first-time homebuyers in 2024 received financial help from family, and I can tell you from my buyer pool, it's higher than 90%. The average boomer inheritance is approximately $450,000, and in Vancouver, that is a down payment. I've seen this firsthand. The number of clients who receive significant family help over the last few years has been notable. When the down payment is large enough, a $1.2 million property can carry the same monthly cost as a $700,000 property. As this wealth flows into housing, it provides a genuine floor to pricing. The second is ownership structure. According to Statistics Canada census data analyzed by Andy Yan at SFU, 50% of homeowner households in Vancouver are mortgage-free. In Oak Ridge, that exceeds 64%, and this matters because true price collapses require forced liquidation. In a market where half the homeowners do not owe a dollar, the pressure to sell at distressed prices does not exist. They can rent it out, draw out equity, or wait. Mortgage delinquencies are rising, up 60% year over year, but at 0.29% nationally, they remain low. We are nowhere near forced liquidation territory here in Vancouver. The third is supply. Developers are delaying and canceling projects due to high financing costs and non-existent presale absorption. The CMHC Spring 2026 supply report shows ownership supply under pressure as developers convert condo projects into rentals. There are an estimated 100,000 approved homes in Metro Vancouver currently stalled due to financial constraints. Housing starts are expected to decline through 2026 to 2028. And here's the paradox. The BC Real Estate Association warns that if current construction trends continue, inflation-adjusted home prices could rise by nearly 27% by 2032. Housing is a long cycle asset. The projects being canceled now create a shortage later, often right as demand recovers. Aggressive government intervention could limit that to 9.4%, but without it, the same pattern that followed 2008, where weak construction fueled the next price surge, is likely to repeat. The correction happening now is setting the stage for the next run-up later this decade. So when you weigh all of this together, where does it leave us? The downside scenarios point to a range of roughly $820,000 to $990,000 on the composite benchmark price. The stabilizing forces, the wealth transfer, the mortgage-free ownership base, the shrinking supply pipeline, all of these suggest that the actual floor is likely higher than the most extreme scenarios. A further decline of 5 to 10% from current levels, bringing the benchmark into the $990,000 to $1,045,000 range, seems like the most probable path based on the data available right now. But I want to be transparent that this is a market with genuine uncertainty. The trade war, the energy price shock, the potential for rate hikes, the labor market deterioration, these are all moving variables. Any one of them could accelerate the correction beyond what the baseline data suggests. What I would tell you strategically is this: if you are a seller, the data is telling you that waiting for a better market is a gamble with diminishing odds. Royal LePage is forecasting further declines. The sales to active ratio is at buyer market levels. Every month you wait, you are competing against more inventory with fewer buyers. If you are a buyer, you are in a strong negotiating position and the data supports patience. But understand that the supply pipeline is drying up and the market conditions that are giving you leverage today are also creating the supply shortage that will drive prices higher later this decade. And if you are a homeowner coming up on a renewal, get ahead of it. The bond market is volatile, fixed rates have been moving, and locking in early removes a variable you do not need. The Bank of Canada's next rate announcement is April 16th, and by then we will have the March inflation data, which will be the first reading to fully capture the impact of the energy price spike from the conflict. If that number runs hot, the rate hikes conversation becomes very real, and these downside scenarios move closer to the middle of that range. If inflation stays contained, the whole scenario remains in play and the correction likely stays gradual. I will break down the data the same way when it comes out, and the decisions you make in the next 60 to 90 days on pricing, on timing, and on your exposure to this market are going to matter. I want to make sure you have the numbers to make those decisions with confidence.